Today's video is about domain investing, or domaining as us domainers call it, and how I made $97,550 in January alone. I've been involved with domains since 1994. Think of domain names as virtual real estate. Just like there can be only one building on the corner of 5th Avenue and West 47th Street in Manhattan, there can only be one diamonds.com. If you own it, that's some fantastic real estate, either the building or the domain. A quick backstory. I had a screen printing and logo design business when I was a teenager in high school that I called Graphics. When it was time to start my software company in 1994, I thought that it would be nostalgic to use the same company name, even though I really wasn't old enough to know what nostalgia was. To those of you who were around in 1994, you'll recall that America Online, CompuServe, and Prodigy were how you got online in those days. You might have heard of the internet, but you probably didn't know how to get on it. My software company sold software developer code to other software developers through CompuServe's SWREG forum. As a software developer, I also had an AOL account as well as a real internet-only dial-up connection through VNet out of Charlotte. VNet was what was known as an ISP, or Internet Service Provider. For those of you who are nerds, you might remember at that time the first web browser was Mosaic, which was a college project by Mark Andreessen, who would graduate and go on to be co-founder of Netscape, a web browser which would forever change the internet. Sure, Microsoft would go on to create Internet Explorer and bully them out of business. I had befriended a guy at VNet, and during one of our conversations, he told me how I could get the domain name for my company name for free. Yes, domain names in 1994 were 100% free. It took a couple of weeks to register one back then. You had to download a text document from Internet's Telnet site. Yes, Telnet is an old internet technology. The document was merely an application form that you filled out and sent back to Internet, and in a week or two, you'd be notified that the domain was yours. So I have to confess that I was an idiot. I registered graphics.com on June 24th, 1994 for free. My registration for graphics.com predates just about every domain that has sold for $1 million or more. Yes, I was an idiot. I could have had any domain then, but I just got my company name. In 1996, a company known as Network Solutions took over the registration of domain names, charging $100 for a 2-year registration. I registered my second domain name that year, 3 or 4 more in 1997, and by 1998, I had registered around 100 or more. So now that we have that bit of history out of the way, fast forward to 2019, I have 7,000 domains in my portfolio. And before we go any further, I want to clear up the concept of cyber squatting. Domainers are not cyber squatters, or at least 99% aren't. Cyber squatting isn't owning domains, it's owning trademark domains intentionally. Owning domains for investment is no different than owning real estate for investment. I have been going to domain conferences for years. The first domain conference was Traffic, put on by Rick Schwartz. However, the second domain conference in existence was Domain Roundtable, and their first conference in 2005 would be the first domain conference that I would attend. It was put on by Jay Westerdahl and Jothan Frakes. If you're a domainer, you can't not know Jothan. Jothan, not Jonathan. Jothan is hands down the ambassador to the domain industry. There would be many domain conferences to follow. I've also been to Traffic, Domain Fest, the Domain Conference, and NamesCon. Yet I have never considered myself a domainer. I'm a developer. I own a software company that is also an e-business incubator. We create startups. We build out businesses, then run them for 1 to 5 years, then sell them off as a business with cash flow. I don't own all of these domains to sell them. I own them to develop them into businesses and then sell them for a lot more money. I know you're thinking that there's no way I can develop 7,000 domains. And you're right. I guess if one of the hoarding television shows covered virtual items, I'd be featured on an episode. Over the past 20 years, when someone contacted me asking me if I would sell a domain name, I would always reply with something like, "It's technically not for sale, but anything's for sale for the right price. Make me an offer, and if it makes me jump with joy, we'll make a deal." Only 2 to 5 of these would make me jump for joy over the years, so I just didn't sell much. From 2015 to 2019, I did sell a little more using services such as Afternic, Cedo, and Uniregistry to make sales, with Uniregistry making most of those sales. Uniregistry has been an amazing service, and Jeff Gabriel brought some sales magic there while he headed up the brokerage side of things. He has moved on to start his own domain brokerage firm with Amanda Waltz, selling high-value domains. 2020 was a terrible financial year for me, like it may have been for many of you. By the end of 2020, I had decided that it was time to be more proactive in selling my domains. My GoDaddy rep, Mike Fear, told me that I should price all of my domain names rather than leaving them as make an offer. He explained it to me like this. He said, imagine if you walked into a grocery store and nothing was priced. You'd probably walk out without talking to anyone. I took his advice and priced most of my domains. There are many brokers out there who prefer to leave domains as make an offer because they feel like you are leaving money on the table by pricing them. And while I agree with that, pricing them has truly allowed me to make a lot of sales recently, and I'm honestly satisfied with the amounts. I sold 4 domains in January totaling $97,550. Yes, if you said wow, I did too. February had 3 more sales totaling $18,998. March had 8 more sales totaling $61,639. April slowed down a tad with only 2 sales totaling $5,821. May had 4 sales totaling $9,150. June had 3 sales totaling $10,049. And July had 4 sales totaling $9,983. What you should know is out of these $212,222 worth of domain sales from 28 domains, I had a total of $38,728 invested in these. Yeah, that's more than a 5-time profit. Now some other statistics for you. The most expensive domain I purchased in this list was $16,587. I know, a lot of money. It wasn't purchased for resale, and I honestly wouldn't have paid that for it if I were selling it. It was purchased for a project a decade ago, and the project ran its course, made its money, and was over. I got to keep the domain after the project, which was great. The next highest cost domain I had was $4,600, and the cheapest was $7.50. So you can see that the domains I sold had more of a cost of $10-ish to $4,000-ish. My lowest sale was $300 and my highest sale was $60,000. And you should know that excluding the $300 sale, my next lowest sale was $1,083. I pretty much never sell a domain for less than $1,000, ever. I was going to let the domain that I sold for $300 expire, so it was simply free money. Some other things to note. I have had some of these domains for as long as 15 years, but keep in mind that I really wasn't a true seller until this year. My goal is to sell off most of my domain portfolio over the next 2 years. Continuing with statistics, domains that I hand registered for $80 typically sold for $1,000 to $2,000. Domains that I bought at auction for $10 to $100 also typically sold for $1,000 to $2,000. Domains that I bought at auction for $1,000 to $5,000 typically sold for $5,000 to $60,000. Yes, and domains that I bought at that $1,000 to $5,000 range also have always had far more activity on offers and everything else. And you should know that I have had to pay a commission to sell all of these domains except one that I sold directly to the end user. 23 of the domains were .com, 2 were .net, 1 was a .org, 2 were a .uk. 1 was a person's first name, 7 were dictionary words, 17 were 2 or 3 word domains, 1 was a 4-letter domain, and 3 were brandables. You might ask what the domain names were, but I like to respect my buyers and not mention the domain names and the sale prices. Although 2 of the Cedo sales were 2 separate weeks and made their leaderboard as the highest sale for each of those 2 weeks. So now you ask, how have I sold these domains? I have listed them on the following domain sales platforms. Afternic, which charges typically a 20% commission. Cedo, which typically charges a 15% commission. Uniregistry, which typically charges a 15% commission. Squad Help, which has a commission anywhere from 7.5% all the way up to 35%, depending on whether it is a standard or premium listing. Yes, the commissions at Squad Help are astronomical if it's a premium listing. However, if you merely do standard listings at Squad Help, the commission's only 7.5%. The difference between a standard and a premium listing at Squad Help is that standard listings only get the landing page and also a listing on your own white label marketplace, which they have to approve you for, whereas premium listings get some marketing love from them and get featured on their marketplace. Squad Help also has this convoluted method of paying a squad coin to list your domain names as a premium listing. So you have to buy squad coins, which each cost $1 and submit your domain for acceptance. And if it isn't accepted, you don't get your squad coin back to use on another domain. So if you have a 50% approval rate on getting your domains accepted for listings, you're effectively paying $2 for each listing. Someone like me who has thousands of domains could end up paying thousands of dollars if they wanted the premium listing exposure. An important thing to note is that Squad Help lets you finance your domain name to the buyer, which I actually like, and I'll talk more on that in a minute. I also have listed domains on Dan.com and Epic.com, but I have yet to sell one on either platform. Dan.com and Epic.com also let you finance your domain to a buyer. Afternic is owned by GoDaddy, and it has been since 2013. They acquired it from their founders, two brothers, Roger and Michael Collins. I talked to Michael Collins every chance I could at domain conferences. He was genuinely a nice guy, and I've missed seeing him at domain events ever since he sold. Uniregistry is also owned by GoDaddy, which was acquired a little more than a year ago. Out of my 28 domains that I've sold so far this year, 3 were sold through Cedo, 3 were sold through Afternic, 3 were sold through Uniregistry, 1 was sold by domainagents.com, 1 was sold direct by me, and 17 were sold by Squad Help. Now, in defense of Afternic, Cedo, and Uniregistry, I have all or most of my domains parked at Squad Help, which means that any type-in traffic goes directly to Squad Help. For Afternic, Cedo, or Uniregistry to sell one of my names, the user has had to search for it or be talking to a broker at that brokerage, and they've suggested it to the potential buyer. I have almost all of my domains as standard listings at Squad Help just because their 7.5% commission makes sense. Out of the 17 domains sold by Squad Help, only 4 were premium listings, each at 25% commission, except for one that was 30%. 5 of these domains were financed. One of those financed was one of the premium listings. I personally like the idea of allowing the domains to be financed. I feel it makes a sale for a higher priced domain when the buyer otherwise wouldn't have bought it. The best part is, if the buyer defaults on the payments, you get to keep what has already been paid to you and you get the domain back. And that has actually already happened to me on one of the sales. There's no additional cost to allow the buyer to finance the domain. Now, that being said, escrow.com also offers financing, but it can get costly, although the fees are charged to the buyer. Escrow.com really doesn't do a good job on domain transactions because it's good for the buyer, but not the seller, because if the buyer doesn't acknowledge to escrow.com that they've received the domain, it takes forever for the seller to get their money. So I'm just not a fan of escrow.com, and it really shouldn't be that way because they've been doing this for so many years. They should have their A game on. I have known several people over the years who exclusively invest in domains. I'll do another follow-up video later this year to let you know how this year has progressed on my domain sales. Lastly, if you decide to get into domaining, I'd suggest that you attend the conferences and network with other domainers. The big conference these days is NamesCon, which is now owned by GoDaddy as of a couple of years ago. And yes, you can tell GoDaddy has pretty much been buying up all these companies in the domain industry. I have met some amazing people at these events over the years. I met Leonard Holmes at my very first one in 2005, and he's a very dear friend to this day. I also met Jothan Frakes back then, and I, like probably everyone else in the domain space, thinks Jothan is gold. Ron Jackson, Chris Sheridan, Xavier Buck, brothers Divyank and Bhavin Tarakia, Jeff Edelman, Michael Gilmore, Howard Hoffman, Paul Stahura, Victor Pitts, Frank Schilling, Braden Pollock, Richard Lau, Mason Cole, Anthony Vancouvering, Angie Graves, John Kane, Jonathan Nevitt, Kevin McKim and his beautiful wife Irene Conde, Mike Mann, Paige Howe, Frank Pavlonis, Monty Khan, and Michelle Miller, just to name a few. If you're new to domain investing, another good friend that I saved for last that I've known for years from a domain conference is Michael Seiger, who has a course on domain investing. You can head over to dnacademy.com to learn more about it. Now, I haven't seen the course, but I know Mike well enough to know that he's made it from all of his knowledge on the subject. Now, while I know Mike, he doesn't know that I'm mentioning him, and I'm not making anything from this. Mike, you owe me a cup of coffee or a beer if you see this. I miss seeing all of these people and can't wait for in-person conferences and events to continue once this pandemic is behind us. I hope this gave you some great insight into domain investing, or domaining as us domainers call it. I'll do another video soon on how I acquire my names. I'm also currently doing an experiment by buying a small handful of brandable domains at various prices and seeing how fast I can sell them. I'll make a video for that as well. I'm also working on another video on how you can fund your retirement with domain names, and I think you'll find it exceptionally cool. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button and bell notification so that we can dominate this YouTube algorithm that my team keep telling me they want me to crush. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Let's all go make bazillions.